We also need Joe Chambers.
I can't.
And Brian Marble. I got a text from Brian that said he would be here.
That Joe there.
Kathleen, hi everyone. Sorry, I'm having a video issue.
Did you get my email?
I did. Thank you so much.
Okay. Just wanted to give you a heads up. There's Joe. Now we just need Brian.
Good evening.
Pardon me?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I just ran in from being out working. So I'm sorry about that. I was.
Are you cold?
It was freezing out there. It was freezing. But,
Yeah, what's the temperature?
well, when we were working, it was 16 degrees. And then as soon as that sun went down, it's down to about 7 or 8 now up
Oh,
in
really?
Franklin, Idaho, Fairview area.
Oh, yeah, my app on my watch says it's 19 here in Providence.
Cold.
Chilly, chilly.
I hope everyone's had a good holiday season so far, Christmas and everything.
Yes, I was with a few of my family members down in Salt Lake, not a ton, but if everybody gets together, there are 42 of us.
That's quite a number.
Hey, Michael Jewell, I see your hand was raised. I just turned you on just to make sure. Do you have a question before we start?
Oh, I was just wondering if we if we had connected correctly. So apologize.
No, sounds like you're good. And so anyway, we'll have you mute. And if you have a time that you want to speak or at a different part of in the meeting, we'll put you there. So anyway, but
Yeah.
I wanna make sure.
So I'm here with Max Fletcher. I think we're on the agenda. Well, we're just part of that part of the agenda, I guess. So
Yes, you are. You're on the agenda.
We'll put you up onto the panelist side, but what we ask is for those that are on the agenda to have your video and mic off while we go on other agenda items.
okay.
And then once we come to your agenda, turn your video and mic on, so then we can have you discuss. So we're gonna have you turn off your camera at this point. When we get to your agenda item, then turn it back on if you would. All right, it looks like we have, we've started our live stream. I think we have enough for our quorum.
We still need Rowan and Brian Marble.
For the full meeting, but I think you have the
Right.
quorum to start if you wanted.
We do.
That's fine.
We need 4 people, right?
I think you have, yes.
So
And Brian, it
me,
looks like just added, so.
Yep,
Michael, Laura, and Joe.
and Brian.
Actually,
Oh.
Kathleen,
Oh, and we've also got Robert Perry. So
Kathleen, you only need 3 people for a quorum because you have 5 voting members and then 2
Okay.
alternates.
okay.
So a quorum is 3.
Oh, good. So we're ready to go. I'm Kathleen Alder, and I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. And we appreciate everyone for being here tonight. And on this cold night, you get to stay in your nice warm place. So we have me, Kathleen Alder. We have Brian Marble. And we have Michael Fortune, Laura Banda, Joe Chambers, Robert Perry, And I guess Rowan Cecil is going to join us, right?
Last I heard, yes.
Okay. Okay. So welcome to the Planning Commission. It's December 30th, 6 o'clock. And Ryan, can you put the flag up on the screen so that we can do a Pledge of Allegiance? And I've asked Lara if she would lead us.
Thank you. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge allegiance to the
to
flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States of America and to the republic
for which
for which
it
it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Lara. We need to approve the minutes of the last Planning Commission meeting. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the December 9th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, Michael, is that you?
That's Bob Harry.
Oh, Bob, okay. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second Laura Banda.
Okay, Laura Banda, second. Do we have any discussion on them?
I looked them over. They look good on my end.
Okay, I didn't see anything to change as well. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? I think we had everybody here last time too, so. Thank you, everyone. So this is the public comment part of the meeting. So anyone who wishes to express their views on issues within the commission jurisdiction by email or text, is there, Scarlett, do we have anybody that has expressed an interest in talking to us?
I do not have anyone either by email or text.
And I do not have it in the meeting, so I have nobody with their hand raised or Q&A or comments.
Okay. All right, so we'll, not having anybody to make comments, we'll close that part of the meeting. We do not have a public hearing tonight, and we do not have any legislative actions. We do have an administrative action. The Planning Commission will consider for approval a final plat for Ballard Springs subdivision, a 39 lot residential planned unit development, PUD is what we call it, located in the general area of 515 West, 500 South. So, having said that, Nick, you're in the meeting, right?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Anything you would like to add?
Nope. If anyone has questions, happy to answer those.
Okay. Anyone on the commission have some questions after reading through the information?
I have one question. It referenced something about parcel 1 was not going to be dedicated. And I tried to pull up the plat and I can see the plat where there's parcels 2 and 3, but I'm just curious what common area, when I say parcel, I mean common area number 1 was. I couldn't see it on there. And Scarlett, if I misread that, go ahead and correct me.
I'm looking for it really quick. I think it's, so Joe, if you look down, you see the street 580 West. If you're going to turn on to 580 West, it would be on your left-hand side. It's that little triangle just as you turn into the development.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I got one.
Okay.
Just a quick one. I think we've discussed it before, but that connection from 500 South, has that been made to the highway, or will it be made to the highway?
It's
Nick, is that road going to extend to the highway?
Correct. That's my question, yes.
not as part of this development,
Yeah,
that if they're extending it to the end of their property, and then as the property to the west develops, the plan is that the road would continue to extend as the next development comes. But Nick's group is extending it for the frontage of their property.
Understood. Thank you.
Nick, I have a question. When you look at the staff report on this development, there are a lot of questions about the parking. I do have a concern about the road and what's going to happen when, being a senior community, there would be a lot of probably more chance of emergency vehicles, and first responders are in fire trucks. Just concerned about how you're going to monitor people parking on the street, even though they're not supposed to.
yeah, good question. So kind of two things there that you mentioned. One is EMTs, fire trucks. We've worked closely with Logan City on this to show that their fire trucks turn in here. We've actually got a project like this in Logan with a similar unit count, and there have been a number of fire trucks in there. No issues on that front. These are pretty quiet communities. Craig Champlin's done a bunch of these throughout the valley. As I drive through them on a pretty regular basis, parking isn't an issue.
Okay.
So I don't know. These, honestly, if you go drive through these, they look like ghost towns. They really do. And we provide at least 3 parking stalls on the driveway itself, in addition to the 2-car garage. And these lot widths are big enough that we can do 3-car garages on most every one of these lots. So I don't know. I don't think parking is going to be an issue. I think we'll be good there, but I can see how that does come up because it is more narrow than your, your standard street. But if you think about it, Logan City doesn't let you park November through March anyway on the street. And so, we kind of deal with that to some degree during those months.
What's the landscaping going to look like? So if somebody were to park on the street illegally, they're not supposed to be there, but the fact remains is people don't pay attention to that sometimes. And a fire truck getting to a residence, would the landscaping that's going to be done prevent the fire truck from going up on the, like, driving around a car if they needed to?
The streets are still wide enough that if the car's parked there, a fire truck can still get around it.
Okay. Sounds good. As I look at the conditions that the staff has reported on, there seem to be a lot of things that need to be provided yet, like landscaping plans and those kinds of things. So are you in the process of getting those to the city?
Yeah, there's a development agreement, which I'm kind of confused why we provide our own development agreement and Providence City doesn't have one that they have us sign. But I've been working with Scarlett on that and we're happy to provide that. Landscaping plans, I probably need to get with Scarlett on that and flush that out. We did show landscaping on our, we showed enough landscaping that met Providence City's requirements on our last submission, but I think you guys might be looking for like a separate document altogether, and we can, we're happy to provide that. We don't, I mean, we love landscaping, so it's not an issue from our perspective. Like we want our project to look really good. So I don't think there's an issue there. What was the, is
It
there
just
one?
seemed like kind of a long list, longer than we normally see. So I'm sure you've seen this report.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have any hesitations with any of it. We just need to get it going. It's a little hard this time of year to get people to act as quick as you hope. That's probably part of our struggle has just been the holidays.
Well, if your people are in the office, the people they need to talk to at another office are probably not there. It's just a terrible time to do business.
It's so hard, especially this week.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions?
I got one pertaining to winter parking on, let's see, that would be 580 West, I believe. Because we have winter parking restrictions here in Providence, will there be parking on 580 West?
Yeah, there's no parking on any of the streets, and not on 410, 550, 580, 460, 520.
Gotcha, thank you.
Just curious, Nick, is that posted? Do you post that? I know it's private streets. I was just curious if you posted that or how the residents know that. Probably part of their homeowners association?
Yeah, it's part of an HOA, and so they know what they're getting into as far as, when they go to build there, they understand that. And honestly, that's why a lot of our clientele builds in a project like this, is because they want to get away from all the hustle and bustle. And so they kind of police themselves, so to speak. Like we believe in strong governance within the HOA. So we make sure that we set that up correctly and make sure we put good people in there that are going to run it really well. And so, yeah, I know we've talked a lot about parking and all that, but it really hasn't been an issue for us in past projects. So I don't know what else to say on it.
So your covenants are restrictive enough that it keeps people in line, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get strong governance, it keeps the project nice. And, we want these to be nice long-term, not just we control the HOA while we're building in there, but then we turn it over. And when we turn it over, we make sure we get, we build a 6 to 9 month relationship with homeowners as we build each one of these, because we will build all 39 of these. So we meet 39 people and we go through the ringer with them. I don't know how many people on this Zoom call have built a home, but can be a stressful thing. And so you see the good and the bad of everybody, and make sure we put good leadership into the HOAs.
Not just power hungry people.
Yeah. So we have our internal vetting process that we go through during that.
Been there, had that happen, but okay. If no one else has questions of Nick, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat. The planning commission will consider approval for the final plat for Ballard Springs Division 39 lot residential plan unit development. Along with and defining.
We can't really hear you, Robert. Can you speak up a little more, or is there not a mic in there, Ryan?
There is. I'll just speak up a little bit louder.
Okay, all right, start over if you would.
I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat for Ballard Springs subdivision 39 lot residential plan unit development, including the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions.
Okay, so Robert Perry has made the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, Joe
Joe
Chambers will second. Any further discussion on that? Any corrections, any additions?
This is Laura. On the final plat analysis on that page 1, just the parcel ID number is missing a digit. It should be 02-096-0058.
Thanks, Laura. I'll get that corrected. There also is a correction on page 3. It's that on the first line under B, it says the west line of the common area number 1. That should say missing instead of mossing. I do have one question before you take your vote, Kathleen. Are you okay with the staff following up on all of these conditions? Are you wanting to see anything back? Are you okay to leave it in the level that the staff will make sure that all of this is taken care of either through the final plat, the development agreement, or the construction drawings?
I think the staff can handle that.
Okay.
Check everything off as you get it, and sounds like Nick is committed to provide that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you. When I was reading through this, I called Charlotte and I said, is mossing a construction term that I don't know about, or should that be missing? And she just laughed. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. And with no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Nick, you've got your marching orders, I guess.
Great, appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you. Okay, that is all we have for administrative action this evening. We have 2 study items. The first one is a discussion about a possible annexation development option. Max Fletcher is here to speak with us about that on parcel number 02-117-0022. It's a 10-acre parcel located in the general area of 600 South Garden Drive. So each of you have that map in your packet. So Max, do you want to tell us what you're thinking about that?
Oh, perfect. So I'm here with Max. My name is Michael Jewell. We've got Joe Rinderknecht with us and Max Fletcher. We're working with Max. I'm part of a group called Trio Group. I'm an attorney here in the Valley, and partnered with a couple of local people here, including our retired Judge Kevin Allen. So I'm actually, I live in Providence as well. So I think I know a few people on the call, but we are working with Max on this property, and like you said, we're gonna, the first step will be annexing it into Providence. And as the commission knows, this property is part of the, I guess, the zoning overlay for Providence, and it's zoned, or I guess it's pre-zoned, mixed use. There we go. So this property is that, the blue square on top, I guess. Yeah, right there. Obviously it's kind of it's an interesting spot there. I think it's one of only 2 mixed use zoned parcels in the city. The other being up by Macy's.
And then there's one further to the north, and it's to the north of the theaters. That's another mixed use.
Oh, okay. Oh, north of Stadium 8.
Right, right.
Oh, okay. That I didn't know.
Can you see that little blue?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, it's an interesting area. Obviously, that area is certainly prone for a lot of growth. I understand that the thought behind the mixed use. I mean, obviously that space to the south as you get into Millville and you get toward Ridgeline High School, that road there, and I think is it 550 South or 450 South? 450, well, 550, I guess. That garners quite a bit of traffic, and ultimately, I think the expectation is that a road would go through from 550. Is it 550 or 450?
It's 550 north, right there by the high school.
Okay. 550 north, yeah.
It doesn't show the roundabout on this map. That always helps me identify where the high school is.
Yeah, yeah. I go through that roundabout quite a bit. Yeah, right down there would be the high school. So obviously that road that would connect down to 550 north, that's going to be kind of dependent on working with Millville and the property owners to the south a little bit. But I think the expectation here from the city's perspective was ultimately that that area would be moving from residential into some commercial area, and the mixed use would kind of help with that transition.
Right.
And that's certainly, I mean, it's certainly intriguing there, and I think it's an exciting opportunity for a project. One of our questions with regard to, so I know that, and I believe it's a 20% requirement.
Not less than 20%. Can be
Right.
more,
Sure.
but not less than 20.
Not less than 20%, and I believe that requirement is retail, if I'm not mistaken, for the mixed use.
Yeah, there's retail, commercial, and residential, all
Okay.
mixed together.
Okay. Do each of those have their own? Do each have to be at least 20%, or is the retail and commercial? My understanding or my reading of it, I guess, was that at least 20% had to be retail. That there had to be a retail component. Is that right?
That's the way the ordinance
Okay.
is written. There's 20% at least 20 residential, at least 20 commercial, and at least 20 retail.
Okay.
I don't think that the commercial is mandatory. The residential and the retail is. And if they want to add the commercial in, they certainly can, and we would encourage that. But the 2 elements that they call out are the retail and the residential. Because in C, Ryan, the ordinance is in the packet, If you go a little bit further on page 1 of 3 of the ordinance, on number C, it says any development in the mixed district must include retail and residential uses and may include office and or commercial. It's down a little bit further past this. There we go.
There's C.
Oh, yeah. And ultimately, I mean, I guess one of our initial thoughts as it relates to that is, because certainly I think the expectation or the thought with regard to that mixed use zoning is kind of, I guess the success of a retail or commercial aspect may largely depend on when that road goes through, right? It's kind of an interesting parcel right now, kind of as you, Ms. Alder had pointed out. It's interesting, the surrounding developments kind of all dead end on that parcel. So there's a few things that we're working on a site plan that makes sense there, that kind of connects the roads. So it's, as you'd mentioned, there's, I keep pointing like you can see me point. I apologize.
Well, we can see you, but we don't know where you're pointing.
Yeah, I could be pointing anyway. There's
Would you like to share your screen? I could promote that.
We certainly could. I'm not as tech savvy as Joe is here, so Joe might be able to. And I don't know if it's necessary. You're probably aware of the street that's farthest to the west that kind of dead ends into that property is 480 West. The one next to that is Garden. And then the one down on the south end that tees there is 2100 South. So we're working on a site plan that'll kind of, I guess, take care of all those dead ends in a way that kind of flows well and makes sense.
What is the piece that is Millville that's to the west of that borders the highway?
Yeah.
What is that zoned in Millville? Do you know?
So that is, it's owned by Utah State.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's commercial.
Okay.
But it's the research area.
The research lab. Actually, my granddaughter works there, so.
Oh, okay.
It is commercial.
And we've talked to Millville a little bit, and they are interested in that area that you pointed out being commercial. They're interested in kind of, and at least trying to bring in some commercial into that area. I think they'd like to have some food service in there, which I think makes sense on that road. I guess.
Service the high school, right?
Yeah, sure. One of our questions with regard to this zoning, because I think what we would want to avoid for the neighborhood, for the city, is essentially a huge retail area. We'd be talking about 50 to 60,000 square feet of retail that essentially sits vacant until a road goes through. I think it would be a difficult retail spot, before a road goes through. One thought we had was essentially if we could, because I think it makes the most sense to put the retail down in that southwest corner, or ultimately wherever the road is going to go through. So along that south end. And until that goes through, and again, we're working with Millville on that. We'd like to see that go through sooner than later, but we're wondering if it would make sense for the city and for this project to reserve space down there for a retail component. I don't know what the city requires with regard to timing, if if the city would allow us to move forward with the residential side and reserve, like specifically reserve, you know, the 20% plus area that would be dedicated toward a retail, I guess, retail portion of the project.
Let me ask you this. If the world were perfect and that didn't say mixed use and was colored blue, what would you do with that property?
We would probably, well, you know, to be frank, I like the mixed use if that road goes through. In a perfect world, I'd go to Millville City and say, let us put a road through. Because I like that a lot with a road that goes through, and because I could see some commercial going in there, especially, I mean, some retail, especially some food service, I think could do quite well. Without that, in a perfect world, I think it makes sense to have that just in Providence's regular multifamily zone, and do what we'd be looking at doing even in the mixed use outside the retail component would be probably a mix of the stacked condos and townhouses, kind of like what Visionary did over, I think it's called the Providence Gateway. That's over like 485 West, 100 South there in
So
Providence.
rental or purchase?
You know, we'd want to get individual tax IDs so that we could sell them. It's an underserved. There's need for it in the valley for starter homes, as you know. It would probably, we'd have to do some due diligence on that. It'd probably be a mix of rentals, and I think we certainly want the opportunity to sell some of those as well. I think that, I mean, I was speaking to a real estate agent, and Max is just toot his horn a little. He's a rookie real estate agent of the year in 2020. And I think
what a year to be a real estate agent. A rookie one at that.
I think there's something like 50 to 60 homes on the market in Cache Valley, which is just, I mean, is crazy considering the demand that we have. And so we're certainly wanting to provide, we want to meet a demand there. And I think, I mean, I love Providence. I think that it's ideally suited. So anyway, that's a long tangential way to answer your question. I think if it weren't mixed use, I do think a multifamily zone there makes a lot of sense. And even then, we would kind of bridge all those roads together in a way that a road still could go through. I think ultimately a road is going to go through there to
Are you talking about the road that tees? So you're talking about a north-south corridor, or are you talking about an east-west corridor?
We'd be talking about, so on that property, we'd want all those three roads that kind of end, we'd want them all to connect to each other at the very least.
Okay.
And then I would think sooner or later, a road will go south from that property down to that 550 north. That's essentially the street that's just north of the high school.
Okay.
Because ultimately, right now, as you know, and as you talk about that development that was on the agenda right before us, that I think it's 500 South. Ultimately, that going through to the highway would be beneficial, because right now it's just, especially with regard to a retail component, that's a difficult parcel to get to.
Yes.
Right now.
I see that.
Which would make, that's one of the things that would make, you know, building a retail component right away a little difficult. I think it would, I don't think the neighborhood would be best served by having, you know, a vacant retail spot there. And that's why I think, I mean, if the city were open to, if we wanted to reserve, if the city wanted to reserve an area there for commercial to ultimately try to get a road through and to put some retail space in there, that's something that could make a lot of sense. Or we could look at zoning it multifamily.
What about single family high? Like the one we just talked about?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. Do you know what the single family high, what's the density on that?
Skylar?
5.5 units per acre.
5.5.
And you've got 10 acres.
Yeah. We'd have to take a look at that. We'd have to run some numbers. Based on what they're asking for the property, that might not make
Sense for you?
economic sense.
So you've not purchased the property yet. You're considering purchasing based on what you could put on there and whether or not you could make a profit based on what they're charging and what you could get out of it.
Sure. Yeah. So we are under contract for it. And now we're just, trying to essentially figure out, because essentially anyone that's going to come and provide capital for that is going to expect a
certain return
on that. And that's kind of what when we run our numbers, kind of what we shoot for, kind of the return that investor is going to expect. And I don't know if the single family high would get us there. I don't necessarily know if we need to do if it went multifamily, I don't know if you necessarily need, because I think that's 18 units an acre. And I think that's something like, what did we decide? That's
162.
160 units. And to be frank, I don't know if we'd even be able to get that many units on there, but it would probably be more than 5.5 an acre. So even if we went multifamily, because mixed use is 30 units an acre, and that would be really packing them in there.
Yeah.
But the multifamily kind of being the middle ground might make the most sense for the neighborhood, as well as being able to provide kind of economic sense for the development.
Okay, so what do you want from us? You're just planting seeds and saying, this is what we're looking at. This is what we might be proposing. You're dipping your toe in the water to see how the planning commission would respond to a request. Tell me what you would like from us.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you hit it on the head I think we're just we want to work with the city and kind of fill a need that the city has and see what your response would be, either with regard to, reserving that spot for retail and keeping it mixed use, or maybe making a switch to multifamily. I don't know which of those sounds more appealing to the city. And I don't know if the city would even be open to, allowing for space to be reserved for retail, but not necessarily built right away.
Scarlett is the person who's the most familiar with our codes
Mm-hmm.
and what is required. So Scarlett, you want to jump in here and join the conversation to give them information?
Well, the question on the time frame of the retail really is not totally addressed in the ordinance, but the ordinance does talk about development plans, and perhaps once it's zoned, because we really don't want to do zoning by, or development by zoning. We want to get the zone and then work with the development plans within there. But the development plans could probably, we'd have to ask Chad for sure, but we could probably talk about percentages and things like that for build out. I think one of the things that I'd like to kind of take just a minute, and Ryan, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the ordinance again and going to page 2 of the ordinance, and then look at the paragraph that says F. I'd kind of like, from the developer standpoint, from Michael and Max and Joe, I'd kind of like your thought process, what your thought is right in the middle of F. There's a sentence that says, here we go, right there. It talks about architectural design and materials, but it's the cursor, Ryan's got his cursor right where I think it's really important. It says proposed development shall be designed with a common theme that reflects the heritage and community of Providence and traditional small town streetscapes. The use of the theme in the proposed development shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. So I think some of that waiting for retail would have to be addressed as part of the theme and part of the development plan. But the Planning Commission does have some discretion in this as far as approving how they're going to lay things out. I don't think that our mixed use ordinance is written like some of our traditional ordinances where you take a piece of property and you subtract out the roads, and if there's any public dedication and you subtract that out of your acreage, if there's any sensitive areas, you subtract that out, and then the rest that's left, you can pretty much say, okay, I've got this much left, the density is this, I can get this many units. This mixed use it is supposed to be an actual full-blown, thought-out development that all the parts work together. So from a developer's point of view, how do you gentlemen interpret that middle sentence there, that proposed the common theme, and how do you think you would present that to the Planning Commission for their review?
Yeah, great question. And I think, that it does present a difficulty based on, exactly like you said. I do think that I think you're absolutely right with regard to what the mixed use is intended to be. And this parcel, being as unique as it is, doesn't necessarily, kind of as we've talked about, lend itself currently super well to that. Because we're working on a mixed use project here in Logan, for instance, that's kind of just like what you mentioned, Scarlett. It's very, it would be difficult to do this kind of project and separate them out, because it kind of, like you said, it kind of turns it into two separate things instead of one blended project, right? So that would certainly be a difficulty that we'd have to overcome. I'm not a designer, so it's a good question that we'd have to be aware of and that we'd have to address in the design process. And there might be a way that we can, accomplish the goal of the mixed use while still kind of avoiding a vacant retail spot. Another, to Miss Alder's point about what we'd like from tonight, I'd certainly be interested to know what the commission's thoughts are with regard to, I guess, how married the city is to that mixed use zone, and how open you think, and obviously I don't expect, final approval tonight on something like this, but
That's good, because we can't.
what your thoughts would be with regard to So, and like, the density for mixed use is 30 units. We'd certainly want to be cognizant of this neighborhood, there's a lot of single family residential over there. They're nice, beautiful homes. And I don't know how much, they're going to love tall buildings being built in their backyard.
They'll tell you.
Oh, I know it. I don't know if the city would be open to maybe that middle ground of the multifamily where we could do more. Our thought there would be having the townhouses kind of around the exterior of the property with the stacked condos over kind of in that southwest side, to prevent the taller buildings being right in the backyard of those single family homes. Full disclosure, so my partner Kevin Allen, his sister lives over there. So she's telling us, don't you dare build 45-foot buildings in my backyard.
There you go.
So I don't know what the city's thoughts with regard to that would be, if you'd be open to considering going to multifamily there with a little bit lower of a density than the mixed use.
Well, to be honest, one of the big concerns for us as a city is helping people to be able to find housing that is affordable enough that we can have all socioeconomic groups living in the city. Right now, Providence is with the price of land, it's more expensive to live in Providence than it is in other places in the valley. And so that's why I ask if it would make sense to do like a medium density single family kind of an area that would provide homes for people, but not huge lots that require a lot of water and a lot of maintenance and upkeep. Because quite frankly, I think a lot of people that are young people who are buying homes are not wanting the big garden and the big fruit tree area.
Mm-hmm.
They're just looking for a nice place to live with enough ground that their kids can play outside. So those are some concerns that we have as a city, is how do we make it affordable for people to live in Providence and still live in a home
Sure.
environment. Not that I'm telling you that we could change that.
Sure.
I'm just planting seeds on the other side.
Of course. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Because if we don't have a dialogue about this, it never happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I've been there. My wife grew up in Providence. We moved away to, get our starter home, and then we moved back to Providence because we love it.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. I from a practical standpoint, and this I should have looked at, and I can look at this, but if with regard to the annexation, with it being overlaid mixed use, would the process be to annex it in mixed use and then request a zone change if we went that route, or could we annex it in along with a requested zone change? Maybe that's a Scarlett question.
So the way that works, if you wanted to annex it in, and then if you decide that you can't, that the mixed use, because there's another paragraph that does talk about, it's in paragraph D, that talks about the development standards, excuse me, not D. It is D, but it's down in 2, and it talks about approved general development plan. If you decided that you could make things work with the mixed use and go through this ordinance and look at that and figure out the timing and things like that, then when they annexed, if you requested the mixed use zone assignment, the city council could consider that without having a specific public hearing just to discuss the zoning. They would still have to have the public hearing for the annexation, but the zoning would be part of that, because the thought is, as long as you're following the general plan, which the planning commission has had a lot of input in, then and people have had a chance for public hearings on the general plan and everything. The thought is all of that zoning discussion has already taken place as part of the general plan. If you're asking for something different, and by the way, this isn't zoned, this is what the preferred zone of the city is. It's not already zoned, but that's the preferred zone. If you're looking at something different, the way our code reads, like if you came back and decided that you wanted to ask for multifamily high density, which is the 18 units that you mentioned, then you would have to, the way we do it so that we don't spin a lot of wheels, is you would actually submit your petition for annexation, and with part of that, you would describe what zone you want. If the zone is different than the mixed use zone, then once the council looks at that, if the council moves us forward for further consideration, that starts a clock that the city attorney and I have some 30 days to review your petition and make sure everything's correct. During that time frame, we would hold a public hearing in the planning commission to discuss the zone that you're requesting, if it's different than the mixed use.
Okay.
So that's how Providence City Code handles that. If you follow the general plan, we feel like all those steps have already happened. If you changed a little from the general plan, then we go to our normal zoning steps.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, that's very valuable information. Thank you very much. I don't think we have anything else that we'd want to address with the commission, unless you have any parting thoughts or questions or anything that you'd like to share with us.
I do. Kathleen, can I have the floor?
Yes.
Okay. One of the points that's
State your
come
name.
up,
State your name.
sorry, Brian Marble on the Planning Commission. One of the ideas that's come up is that what is the city looking for and what would the city accept, and that whole idea. The way I look at it is that the city is the people. The people are the city, and then have elected the different people to make decisions. And if we don't like them, of course, we move on to somebody else. But the point is, I've talked to people in the city. So my opinion on the people I've talked with is that nobody that I know of is really happy with multifamily high density, the one on First South. And so the comments that you've made about the sister-in-law or the sister that lives over there and doesn't want the high buildings close by, that's been my experience with everybody that I've chatted with about the places on First South. That there's just too many, they're too tight. What's it going to look like in 50 years? And so that to me is what the city is saying. And it's not necessarily up to the staff, it's up to the people in the city and what they would like. And that's what I'm hearing as an individual, but as an individual that's on the Planning Commission that's very interested in what way we should go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for coming in, guys.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Okay, and if you have further questions, we're happy to answer those questions. We realize there are some ifs, some big ifs
Sure.
that are attached to this piece of property. And as a resident of Providence, and I am also a landowner, land in the west part of the city, and those are all things that I struggle with as well. What do we do to best help the city and the citizens in the city, but yet you still have a responsibility to make to do it making a profit for your investors.
Sure.
So we have a discussion about the mixed use and the density requirements. That's on the agenda for tonight. And so we'll be talking about that. And I think you should go away as developers and say what makes sense for us in order to meet the needs of the people who are investing with you. And then we'll see if we can come up with something common that works for everyone.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
thank you for coming in.
We'll-
We appreciate. Listen to your sister-in-law or sister, whoever, because those are the people that will come to the meeting and say, "Don't do it."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm a landowner in Providence as well. And so yeah, I understand the concerns there as well, which is one of our concerns with the mixed use, to be frank, as well. So, but yeah, we'll look at that, and then we'll just
See you again.
next step. Yep, perfect.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so we'll close that discussion and go now to the city code review. Did all of you have an opportunity to read that? Ryan, if you want to throw that back up on the screen, the mixed use code. We've been asked by a couple of people from the city council if we would look at this and review it and talk about the density that is approved for mixed use. And I sent you the density chart as well. And Scarlett, do you want to bring us up to speed on anything that we haven't talked about tonight that you think will be of benefit to the commission?
I included in your packet, as you can see, Ryan just scrolled through the uses that are allowed in the mixed use district. I think one of the reasons that the density is higher in the mixed use is because that planning commission really felt like if somebody came in and they did the streetscapes, I think the problem is what we're seeing right now, we're not seeing people that are reading the entire ordinance. They're not coming in with a development plan. They're not coming in with the theme laid out in their development plan, and they're not showing streetscapes type things. So we're missing a lot of pieces. What they're doing is they're building multi-family developments, and then they're thinking, well, I got to have 20% retail. So they're crunching a building here and a building there within their big parking lot area to get their 30 units per acre. Because they only get the 39 if they go vertical, and that means that they're actually mixing the retail within the building. The other is a maximum of 30 units, and that's a big thing. It's a maximum of 30 units. It doesn't mean that that's what they have to have. So I guess what we really need to think on with this mixed use ordinance, it does involve quite a bit of the planning commission as far as you reviewing their development plan, you reviewing their theme, that type of thing. I guess my question would be, how comfortable are you? This mixed use is not a multifamily. While it incorporates multifamily, it's not a standard multifamily zone. It's like I said earlier in the discussion, it's not one where you can come in and say, okay, I got this many acres, I'll carve out this many streets, I know I need this much for landscaping, and bam, I know how many units. This one takes a lot more creativity and thought. And by doing that's something on your shoulders too, to to work with the developers and make sure that you're comfortable with their creativity and the thought. So I guess my question would be is how married are you to even the mixed use zone? Do you feel like it's something, I kind of think if done right, it will work. It may still be premature for Providence City, I don't know. But I'm just curious as to how the Planning Commission on the whole feels about the whole concept of mixed use.
I feel like mixed use in the right place would work.
Let me ask
I
you,
don't think the right place is just wherever we think we want to put mixed use. Ryan, did you have a comment?
I do. I would ask to have you paint a picture of what you think it looks like. So I'm going to make an attempt to give an example, but I think you ought to make sure that you can paint a picture of what you think this district looks like. So I would say a good example of this would be a 5-story building with the top story offices, nice glass windows, and an looking out over the valley. Three of those stories being residential housing, and retail being on the bottom floor of that, similar to what you have at the City Creek Mall, although it has a lot more stories. But similar to that, at this point, you're having a high-rise building with mixed use, and you're having it combined. And then you have a large set of parking. Is that something that you say, oh yeah, that's exactly what we'd like in Providence? May or may not. I'm just painting a picture of what is a good example of a vertical mixed use. And then you'd have a floor underneath that, a parking garage, so you could park some of the cars instead of having them all spread out. So you'd have parking garage below, a main retail space, and then up above. The other way you go to fit the number of 30 units per acre, if you think 18 is dense for the Providence townhouses there on 100 South, if 18 is making you choke, 30's got to make you choke. Not that I'm opposed to the area, because I think the mall, the City Creek Mall is a beautiful area, and I have a friend that lives there, and they really like it. But you got to ask yourself, can you paint the picture of what this district looks like for you, and do you think it matches Providence? That's what I would challenge the commission members to do. Can you find it in your mind that this has a place in Providence? If you can't, then you got to think really hard. Hopefully you can, because it's in there, it's in the code, and at some point people thought about it. But I would challenge you to paint that picture in your mind of what you think it could be a good proposal. Anyway, that's my challenge.
Well, what you're describing is a building like the Adams building, really. That's going in there where Ellis equipment used to be.
I don't know the Adams building across,
Right.
the Adams Wealth.
The
Building.
Adams Wealth building.
But I think it's all office, not just, I don't think the middle ones are commercial, are they? Or the middle ones aren't residential, are they?
Well, I'm not talking about what's in there. I'm talking about the look.
Oh, yeah, that's the look I'm thinking. That's but
Yeah.
that's just me painting a picture. I can see that, and in certain areas I could envision that.
Well, personally, I don't envision that on that 10-acre piece that we were just talking about.
Can I
I'm
ask?
only trying to give ideas of how you can look and say, what could this look like? Because if we're talking townhouses and you're talking that many townhouses for the area, now, granted, you have to carve some out, so it's denser in one spot. That's a lot of parking. Anyway, I would just challenge you to find a way to see how you could envision that. because if you can envision it, maybe we just need to change the zone to match what that vision might be like.
Okay,
This is Laura. I had a question about the vision, Ryan. Is that higher than 45 feet? Because the building height right now is 45 feet.
I agree with you. I didn't say my vision was doable. I was
Like-
just making it as a demonstration. But
As
you're
part-
correct. You're correct. It would not work. So if that was your vision, you would need to change the height, or you would need to recommend a change in the height ordinance. But yes, you're correct. That doesn't work.
Okay. Some of us were on the committee at length on the conversation in this area. And Bob Rowan, if I'm misspeaking, please correct me. But there was a lot of conversation about like the area down really by city offices and on Gateway and things, and being a retail bottom and townhome or apartment or residential above, and having it be a walkable mixed use type of buildings. That's what I remember, because I know we had a lot of conversation about vertical and horizontal and how that could look.
who else has any comments? Thank you, Laura.
Clayton, if I
This
could-
is, go ahead.
This is Michael. I think your comment at first, I agree with 100%. I don't think we have anything like this in Providence. I don't really think I really want to see anything like it in Providence. But the real key is like you said, Kathleen, it depends where it's at. It's the location. Would it work if it's the right location? That 10 acre piece and most of that all around there, I don't think is right for anything like that. Something along the highway like that Wealth building is, even that, I don't know how
Even that looks kind of out of place.
yeah. And I don't know how you would make it, I don't know that we're that so pressed for space or so we have such a high tech group that people would want to have apartments in that building if you looked at it that way. So my personal opinion is for this 10 acres piece and the one south of it, I think it's wrong for them. I think that's not something we would want to see in Providence and that location.
Okay. Anyone else?
So can I give you an alternate picture?
Yeah.
Go to 2500 North or whatever it is in North Logan, where they have those townhomes and the bottom units have salons and businesses in them. And then the top units, it's a different look. I'm not saying it's a better look, but it's a different look.
The more homey look as opposed to a glass office building look.
Yeah, I like Ryan's description very well, because that is a really cool looking mixed use. I mean, City Creek is beautiful and it is really neat. But there is also the mixed use possibility that's more like the North Logan version, where you do have businesses located on the bottom floor, and then the top 2 floors are for residential, whether it's a 2-story townhome on top of the business, so there's 3 floors in the building, or whether it's 2 different condominiums on top of that. I don't know, but that's the type of talk that Laura was referring to when the Planning Commission worked on this several months ago. Well, probably a year and a half ago now. So, but I don't know if that's the thought. I think it's important too to remember that sometimes when we're planning, we need to address immediate needs, but we also need to remember future needs. And if Millville really does create that, it's called a commercial, I don't know what CG exactly stands for, but it's called commercial CG. If they really do create that area there, are the single family homes really going to want to be right up against that area? Are the single family homes really going to want to be right up against Macy's? Would you put your single family home between Gateway Drive and Macy's? So I think sometimes we need to think about that as well. Nobody wants to have some of this multifamily, and yet those aren't really very attractive places for single family homes either. At least over by Macy's. And that's what this may end up as if it goes the way it sounds like Millville's planning it.
Well, then you talk about how long it's going to take for that area to reach that type of a density and commercial development. Quite frankly, everything is in such a flux right now. What is commercial? I don't know. I would be hard pressed to come up with a definition that fits into where we are right now in our in the way our population and our country is going. Things are changing, but with a lack of that kind of definition, I can certainly see what you're saying, and we want to plan for the future, but we also have some immediate needs.
Kathleen, could I ask Scarlett a question?
Is that Michael?
Yes, I'm
We
sorry.
can't see your mouth. You need to pull your screen down a little bit or something.
I gotta get that figured out. I thought
Yeah,
I would have broken
that's
my
better.
camera by now, but my question for Scarlett is, the thing you were talking about with the city of Millville, is that something where I could go on to their city website and look at their master plan? Is that where I would find out more about what you were describing?
Yeah, I think so. What I'm actually looking at is just the parcel zoning viewer that the county has. They have a layer that you can turn on that shows the zoning for all of the cities. That's what I'm looking at. But I'm sure if you went on Millville's website and pulled up their general plan, it would tell you it would describe a little bit about their vision for that commercial area. I was just going off of what the gentlemen that are still with us, what they said that they had talked to Millville about, and that they would like to see eateries and things along there, which I think that would be great. But that also those kind of things lend well to walkable communities. And so I think it's a very tricky wicket, but I would come back to the question on the mixed use. It can go, there's many different facets probably that we could do. It could go all the way from the City Creek type look to the North Logan type look. And I'm not really sold on the North Logan type look either. I'm not promoting either one. I'm just using it for another example that you can visualize. But my thought still goes back to my question with the Planning Commission. Do you feel like mixed use is something that we really ought to keep on the books and that we ought to keep working with and refine it? Or is it just something that you don't feel like is manageable? Because if you feel like it's on the books it is on the books. If you feel like it's something that we can refine and work and come up with a better product, that's wonderful. But if you just feel like it's not really something that's going to work in Providence, then we probably need to rethink the whole thing.
Well,
We do have 2 applications that have it right now, so we do have to go through that process with those people and make it work as best we very can with what we have now.
I think that it works in places like behind Macy's. because it doesn't butt up, it butts up against a road and the back of Macy's. So I think those kind of things could work in that area. But I would question how it works at this time in that piece that's kind of away from everything else and doesn't have any roads that connect it. It's kind of a dead end street, which most people don't go down a dead end street to get their fast food. So I would think that would be an issue.
I agree with you, Kathleen. This is Michael about what could work in that piece of property behind Macy's and the road there and so forth. And that's something that's, again, the location can play a big part of it. I don't, I didn't know anything about the Millville thing. That's why I want to look more at that and see just what they're planning out there. But you're right, the roads and things aren't in on that piece and that kind of stuff right now.
So Kathleen,
Yes.
sometimes development comes before the infrastructure for the roads. So this may or may not be a chicken and the egg that says,
Yeah.
you build it, the road comes, or the road comes and then you build. So some of that balances go both ways. I would go back. I am quite interested more in the question that Laura mentioned and maybe have the rest of those that were on the Planning Commission weigh in. What was the thought and do any of you remember why that area and what the vision was? Because it would be very helpful for me to understand coming new, and I think some of the others that are new on the Planning Commission, what was the thought and to kind of give some of that. I don't mean to promote one or the other, just to promote maybe discussion rather than a certain avenue. But it would be interesting to see what some of the others were thinking. I really appreciated Laura's comment.
So Robert, you were on the Planning Commission at that point in time. Do you remember what the questions were? And Laura, what discussion was made as a result of what you were doing to put together the plan?
No,
I came onto the commission just as everything was finishing up, so I wasn't part of that discussion.
This is Robert. No, I don't remember the questions or without going back over some paperwork. But having maybe a 3 or 4 story building, if it's done right, if it looks nice, maybe we gotta just leave mixed use alone for a while to see what happens around some of the other vacant properties that we have in the area. I don't know, Laura, do you remember any of the discussion that we had?
I do remember a large conversation that we had, particularly about the townhomes that went in by the medical park there on Gateway, about that area being one that could possibly be mixed use with a retail below and those townhomes above. A lot of the medical doctors wanted that townhome area to remain medical or business park. And there was a conversation about that being a possible area that could support this type of look. But it was like definitely 45 feet, a much smaller build than what Ryan was suggesting, which I not that I oppose or agree, I'm just saying it was a much more in concert to the neighboring areas and still maintaining retail, but also bringing in some housing with it. People could have a nail salon. There was conversation about dry cleaners and different things that might be walkable. But again, it's the area where it would be placed, and that would be more along main corridors where people might visit retail and then also have it be convenient for access to transportation for future residents.
Anyone else? Joe, do you have anything to add? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I've got a couple of contracting clients and I don't know much about the building code, so don't take what I say as anything expertise, but my understanding is the highest you can build is four floors with sticks with lumber. And anything above that, you're going to have to use concrete if you wanted to go up 5, the first floor is going to have to be concrete structure. And concrete's pretty expensive, and that's why you're not getting it. And with COVID, the consensus seems to be to sort of work from your home and stay in your community. And I sort of wonder what that means to our concept of retail stores. I think there's a bubble in the market right now, or will manifest itself shortly. And so I think retail is not how I would personally invest. And I've got to think others are thinking the same way. And Michael, you probably know more about it than I do, but those are my thoughts. And I just don't see where Providence is quite ready for this type of an ordinance, particularly out in that area where we were talking about with Mr. Jewell. I just don't see it there. But I'm certainly open to learning, and I was listening very closely to the comments of the prior Planning Commission members. That's where I'm at.
Brian, would you leave mixed use? This is Bob. Would you leave mixed use in our code and just wait to see what happens in maybe a year, 2 years?
Well, we do have properties zoned mixed use now, so we are dealing with it.
Well, Scott,
The property that's north of the theaters, that's mixed use. And the developers are committed to moving down the road with that concept. Scarlett, they're drawing up their plans now, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got their concept in place. Well, part of it in place, yes. And then the part that's already zoned mixed use, the preliminary plat we're reviewing right now on the Providence, what's that, Providence City Center? Or it's the one that's right behind Macy's. So
And the one behind Macy's, concept-wise, has townhouses and then kind of separated the retail and office. But the one above Macy's, I think it's condominiums, and if I'm not mistaken, it had a four-story flat roof. Isn't that right, Scarlett?
the one north of the theater definitely does. I don't remember if the Macy's, the ones by Macy's are 4 stories or not. They well could be.
Yeah, I was thinking they were 3,
think
but
you're right.
I was thinking the other ones by, so in order to fit that kind of density, you are having to go up in height. I would be interested, Scarlett, I liked your thought in North Logan. I didn't know of that one. But I'm curious what density they have. I think that would be an interesting for a member of the Planning Commission to find out.
Well, the other thing that we need to find out is what percentage of those businesses are filled. I mean, what kind of businesses are in there, and are they blank or do they have businesses in them? Do you know that, Scarlett, off the top of your head?
I have not gone out and really looked at it I have not gone into the development and looked at it. I've been told about it several times. I do think there are some businesses that are, I do think there's a salon that's operating in there, some insurance, a small variety of businesses I think are actually open in there, but I haven't looked at it. So I'm going off of word of mouth, which is always risky business.
Are there other locations in the valley where we've got mixed use that we can go look at? I mean, City Creek is a long ways from where we're at, and we may never get there, but maybe we
I
don't
bet
want
Linda would
to.
be up for going shopping in City Creek.
No, yeah, but credit card isn't.
And
Anyway.
I didn't mean to bring up City Creek as a
That's okay.
distraction, just
No.
as throwing it out of kind of challenge the process of what you're looking for, because that's an extreme example, but it is definitely a
But
mixed
it gives
use.
you a visual. It gives you a visual of
and
something to put in your mind.
And everybody likes it that goes to it. It's a very comfortable place, and it's nice that they've got all that residential there and all that retail there. It's a great place. But what are there other places in the valley where they're doing this or where they've done this and they've been successful at it? 2500 North. Are we talking about on 2500 North? We're talking about on Main Street at 2500
It's
North.
out there by IFA. It's behind IFA.
IFA. Okay.
It's not down on the highway. It's
Okay.
east. You have to turn up and go east. And I'm not sure which north it is.
It's
and-
22. It's 22nd North.
22.
Okay.
2500
it's
goes
second
past
east.
the elementary school and the library out there in North Logan. So I can certainly go check that out. My sister lives on 2200 North, but she lives further east. I was not aware of the businesses. And Scarlett, do you know, are they, the people who have businesses, are they connected to their homes like the ones that we were talking about earlier this year?
I don't know, Kathleen. I've got to do more homework on it. I'm like I said, it's always risky business when you go off word of mouth.
I'll do some homework on it as well, and then we can compare notes and see.
If you go past it, it's on Second East. I noticed that they are using parking on the street for the commercial businesses. There's
Yeah.
no off-street parking at all. And that road, Second East, is wide enough. It only has one lane traffic going in from north to south, but it's wide enough that they have parking available, particularly on the west side where the buildings are. On the east side, there's no improvements. I think it's still raw ground. So it would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, and I'll take that assignment and go out and look and see what they have going on there. But the ordinance for mixed use, Scarlett, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't it say specifically that they have to make accommodations for parking? They can't be on-street parking?
No, actually, the mixed use, it was designed for that historical thought where you were going to walk, you'd pull up if you did drive a car, you could pull up. I think we are only requiring 1.5 parking units or parking stalls per unit, and I'm trying to get there really quick in the ordinance. We do allow street, it says parking, you have a big play in the parking. Parking locations are strongly encouraged on the side and to the rear of any proposed structures, with minimum parking between the front of the building and the street. Parking shall not occur adjacent to any public street except when it has been established that such a location is needed or justified by other side or building entrances. The parking is supposed to be screened. So, like I said, you have quite a planning commission, and that development plan for the mixed use is really connected.
It's open,
Yeah.
right?
So it's discouraged to have the parking on the street, but but that, Ryan,
But
you're
it's
right
not
there.
prohibited.
Actually, it's on number 2. So. And then G up above there talks about parking.
So when it says parking shall not occur adjacent to any public street except, so what does adjacent mean? Between the building and the street? So it doesn't call out street parking per se?
Let's see.
I just wasn't sure about the meaning of adjacent.
I'm not ignoring, I'm just trying to find the
Well, at the
street
bottom,
parking
it
in
says
the
parking
ordinance.
requirements will be considered as maximum parking. Residential units will require at least 1.5 spaces. Non-residential uses may consider the parking available on public streets.
Right.
So for the residents, they can't park on the street, but non-residential people can, which would be the same on any city street in the city of Providence, right?
Well, residents can park on the streets in Providence as well, but this is doing more probably like North Logan, where it is allowing the idea to let the non-residential uses consider parking available. So if you had, for example, if you had a business on the bottom floor and then a townhome that occupied the 2 upper floors, if it was a 3-story building, the developer would have to supply 1.5 parking spaces for that townhome, but some of the parking for the non-residential bottom part could occur on the public street.
Okay.
This is Brian again. The only other mixed use I can think of in the valley right now is that of downtown Logan. And we've got the retail down below, and there is some residential up above. But I've been in some of those residential, and you don't want to be there. I'm concerned if that's what we're trying to shoot for. I mean, the Main Street in Logan looks just fine. You know, it's beautiful. And the owners seem to keep the buildings up. The city keeps the street up. It's a gorgeous place. But as far as residential goes, you know, those people are parking behind the buildings, and the inside of those buildings are not very nice at all. Of course, they're not privately owned. They're owned by the owners of the buildings themselves. Anyway, that's the only other mixed use I can think of as an example of what we're trying to get to.
They're probably also fairly old, Brian.
Agreed, but again, where else are we talking about mixed use
I agree. That's why I was
that's
asking the questions.
successful in this valley? Something that we would want to model after or use as an example to come up with something. But if we're not, then I think we ought to just take it off the table, you know, and I don't know, park it or whatever you want to call it. Just take that ordinance and do something with it. And let's just deal with the residents versus commercial zoning specifications.
Well, we have some that are zoned there and with plans, so we can't just abandon it.
Oh, no, I understand.
But you're right.
You know,
I would pose
I
the question.
apologize. I was just going to mention, I know George Daines has played around with the idea with the old First Security Bank building, Wells Fargo on 5 South Main. I know he's played around with putting residential up there, and you know, he lives in Providence. Someone ought to pick his brain, and if I run into him, I will, as to if he's moving forward with that or not. I can tell you that Cache Valley Bank purchased the First Security Bank building in Ogden, and the developers went bankrupt trying to convert the upper floors into residential on that building. And it's a 11, 12 floor high rise on 24th and Washington Boulevard. So I don't know that there's really a market for that type of thing, but anyway.
Well, years ago, 20s, maybe even 30 years ago, the old Ben Lomond Hotel in downtown Ogden converted all of their rooms into, you could purchase those rooms and you could do whatever you wanted, but you could rent them out like a hotel room. You could live in them, do whatever. And after a few years, it wasn't successful at all. They had to eliminate it and go back to having it be a hotel. So there are some examples around of things that haven't worked in the past. The question is Providence sophisticated enough to be able to support that kind of a development? So, not sure what the answer is, but I think we've talked about it enough right now. There are some things that we need to check out. We certainly need to put it on the agenda for our next meeting and come back with some additional information, and see if we can hash this out a little bit. Of concern to the city council members who were asking us to review it was what seemed to be an extreme density for the number on an acre. That's a lot of units for an acre. 30. So in the absence of any additional comments, I would suggest that each of you see if you can find some examples of it other places, and then we'll come back and we can discuss it again and see what makes sense for the city of Providence. Maybe talk to some of your constituents, and I guess for us, we're not elected, so they're not constituents, but some of the other residents, to see if there are any opinions on that. Ryan, do you have any further comments, or Scarlett?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't have anything either.
Okay.
I just want to say I appreciate your discussion, and I appreciate Laura and Bob's input from what the Planning Commission went through. Like I said, probably a year to a year and a half ago, trying to figure all of this out. So thank you.
I do want to make mention that in the minutes of our last meeting, in a discussion that we had at the end of the meeting, there were some comments about the affordable housing requirements mandated by the state. And when I say affordable housing, I'm not talking about the government program affordable housing. I'm talking about housing that is affordable for people to be able to take advantage of in the city of Providence. And Brian asked for me to provide my opinion on affordable housing. And Joe Chambers suggested that Ryan in the next meeting would review the general plan relative, let's see, would like a presentation by Ryan Snow at the next meeting about affordable housing. And so we forgot to put that on the agenda for tonight. And so we will put that on the agenda for our next meeting. So with
Hey,
that,
Kathleen, if
yes.
you could send me any kind of detail that you would like to have included in a presentation, that would be helpful for me.
Okay.
Or if Joe has some that he would like me to cover, just forward me that so that I'm on the right page with you.
So you can answer whatever questions might be.
Correct. If it's affordable housing and what you'd like to know, I know the mayor has put out a lot in the newsletter and there's a lot of resources. I'd hate to rehash any of the resources you could have access to. So if you can give me a specific to cover, I'm happy to cover whatever. So,
Okay, so Joe, if you can remember what you were thinking at the time that you made that request, that would be great.
Yeah, I might mention that at the time I sent some email exchanges between Ryan and back and forth and copied everybody on the planning commission, or at least I tried to, after you sent that article on the accessory dwelling units. I was not aware that Providence had adopted an accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And after the mayor sort of kicked in and reminded, everybody, I went ahead and read those ordinances. I don't know that I could do a rereading, but so, it seems to me that Providence has already addressed the affordable housing option by addressing the accessory dwelling unit. And besides that, I'm just sort of interested from the administration's point of view, what they see other quick fixes that would be available to the community and still keep the community the way that when I moved into it, I liked the community the way I moved into it.
I guess in mine, and I don't mean to hash it at this point, but to answer that simply, I would regurgitate the general plan to you, because that's the staff's perspective, is what we're given by the general plan and the ordinance. So unless you want me to present something outside of there, I'm going to present I would only present training on the general plan and the ordinance, because I have no opinion other than what the council has determined, is my opinion.
Kathleen, this is Michael. Can I make
Yes.
a request?
Yes,
If we could, in that next meeting also, in the email from the mayor, it talked about some individuals in Providence, residents in Providence that had, I think he mentioned about a half a dozen that had met with Scarlett, and there were some issues that prevented them from moving forward with their ADUs. And it would be interesting to be able to discuss a little more. What were those issues that prevented them from moving forward? And that might be something we need to look at in regards to that code, if it was setbacks or just whatever it was. I'd be interested to know what stopped them from being able to go forward.
so what I'm hearing is that you want to have a discussion on ADUs as well. So we've had one person be able, from what I understand, we've had one person come in and get permission to build an ADU in what, 2 years or at all, or what's the statistic on that? Do you remember, Scarlett?
The person that was successful, they actually had an accessory building, and they took advantage of the part of the ADU ordinance that allows you to convert a portion of your accessory building or convert the accessory building depending on the size. And they converted a portion so that they met the size requirements. But they had planned for the future that accessory building actually met all of the setbacks as a regular residential structure. They happened to be one of the few that had a big lot, and they had thought about well in advance. And when this ordinance came into play, they were ready to move forward with it. So I will be happy to work with Ryan, and we can, as we review the ordinance, we can talk about some of the obstacles that people have had when they come and sit down. I do have one little quick thing I would like to ask input on, and you can just shoot me an email. We don't have to have a discussion on it tonight, but in your packet, I included a summary of the mixed use that had kind of a summary of the ordinance, and then a chart, a table that showed steps. I would just kind of like to know how you felt about that particular document. That's definitely a work in progress. One of the developers asked me to put that together for him. But I'd like to make it so that it's something that's an easy read for, you don't have to understand our code to be able to really understand what that document is telling you. So if you would let me know what you think of that document. Ryan said he would like to see the other processes that we have done in a similar fashion. And I would love to do that. I think it's a good idea, but I want to get your input on this first one to see how you feel about the format and just the way it was done. If it made sense, if it doesn't make sense, that's all. And if you don't have time to get back to me, that's great too. But if you do have a minute and you can shoot me an email on it, feel free to mark it all up and whatever. I take no offense to help with future progress. So thanks.
Scarlett,
Well, when I reviewed it, I called and talked with Scarlett about it. This is good for me because as you talk about all the processes that take place when somebody comes in and wants to get a development going and to make sure that they don't miss any steps, I think this is invaluable, actually. So I applaud her efforts to do that. But if any of you, the rest of you review it and see some things in addition that you'd like to see on that, that would be good feedback for her. Robert, did you have something you wanted to say?
yes, that was the development step summary document, Scarlett?
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's on a
Yes,
mixed
that's
use
the one.
district.
I'm sorry. I'd like to know which document it is as well. I don't remember seeing it.
It's towards the back, this is Bob, it's towards the back of your paperwork. It's 4 pages long. It's called the Development Steps Summary.
So it's about page 34 in our stack of docs this week.
Towards the end, yeah, my.
Okay, great. That's good. I can go.
It's the
through
last
these.
one, isn't it, Scarlett?
Yeah, mine is actually, looking in my PDF, it actually started on page 29, but it does say development steps summary, just like Bob said. And this one was specific to the mixed use district. It was one of the mixed use developers that asked me to put something together for them. So it pretty much comes out of the state code or the general plan in our city code. But like I said, if you've got comments, I'm more than happy to incorporate to make it a better read for people.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Okay. If there's nothing else, I would,
Here, next meeting scheduled for,
our next meeting would be scheduled January, what's the second?
January 13th.
Okay.
thank you.
So Wednesday, January 13th at 6. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion since Brother Cecil's not here. Yeah,
So Michael Fortune. Maybe that's a dangerous precedent, Michael.
maybe.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Who's that?
Bob.
Bob. Second by Bob. Any discussion? Anybody want to go longer? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?